Lantern Rite is here, and that means we're getting another round of the Genshin 4-star Selector. Not only does Leeway have some of the most broken 4-stars in the game, not to mention the brand new 4-star Gaming is also going to be included. So we're going to be going over not only which of these characters is most worth it for you, but I'm going to go over every single one of all of their constellation, so you can make the best decision on this extremely important choice for your account. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Now, since the last time we've had this kind of selector, a lot of things have changed. And I think the biggest one is that Farina has opened up a lot of new possibilities for your account. And if you happen to have both Farina and Yelan, for example, Xingqiu isn't the must build that he used to be. Of course, if you don't have those characters, or if you're just trying to be the most efficient with your account, depending on the teams, he is still an extremely broken character. But I don't think it's just as simple as, oh, if you don't have Xingqiu, just choose Xingqiu. I think that there is some considerations to be had, but by and large, you can't go wrong choosing Xingqiu, especially if you don't have him. Now, I want to get a couple things out of the way. Make sure you wait until you're completely done wishing on whatever banner is going on before you pick your 4-star, because it's possible you snipe one of these 4-stars that you wanted, or the constellation that you wanted, or another one, or something else happens, and it changes your mind over what character you would pick. Like, you can always get 4-stars off banner. Like, even if Xingqiu, it's pretty likely, first of all, that a lot of these characters will be on banner during the time that you can choose them, so you might end up getting them if you're wishing on the banners. But also, you can get any 4-star at any time from the limited banner, unless it's a brand new 4-star and then it gets added to the patch later. But if you're going for anyone other than Gaming, you might get spooked by a random Xingqiu or a random Xiangling or a random Yao Yao or a random Beidou, and now it was a mistake to choose that character as your free character because you could have gotten something else. So that's the first tip, is make sure you do all of your possible wishes that you'll possibly be wishing on first. Second is, I would generally prioritize new characters over constellations if that character is part of a team that you really want to build. So yes, we'll go over the most notable constellations for Xingqiu, but even if you don't have those constellations, he's still very much functional at Constellation 0. Same with Xiangling. So if picking Yao Yao opens up a brand new team, like you didn't have access to aggravate with a healer, for example, then I would highly recommend getting a character that opens up a brand new team. Again, if that character is actually going to be useful for you. Obviously Ningguang opens up a Ningguang team, but if you didn't want to play a Ningguang team or you didn't care that much, then obviously that's not recommended over getting a constellation for a strong character like a Xingqiu or Xiangling. So this is like, should you build the character overall? S is going to be almost every account. The cool thing about Genshin these days is, like, it's always been the case that no character is a must build, but nowadays it's more true than ever. There's so many different options, like characters that, like, I would say Kazuha used to be almost a must build if you want to build certain teams, but Farina has kind of opened up alternative options that are almost just as good. He's still the best grouper, hands down, but in terms of buffing and resistance shred and stuff like that, there's other teams that can now compete. So, and same with Xingqiu, like, it used to be pretty much a given that you have to build Xingqiu to really maximize your account, but now with Yelan and Farina, it's not so obvious that you need to build Xingqiu. So just because a character is an S tier, that doesn't mean you have to get them if you don't have them, but you're probably going to want to make sure that you have certain other options aside from them. So obviously Xingqiu is going to go in this tier, and those are the other options. If you're not going to pick Xingqiu, make sure you have a couple other Hydro characters, or make sure you're not using teams that really need Hydro characters badly. Like, if you already have a Novelette, for example, that does lighten the load a lot. You don't need Xingqiu and Yelan at all if you have Novelette. Obviously, maybe if you're using him with Farina, then the other side, you might still want to use Yelan and Xingqiu, because Hydro is just so broken. It's ridiculous how broken Hydro is as an element, and it's true that almost every account should build Xingqiu. I realized I didn't even switch it to him there, but there are a lot of other options. So other Hydro characters, Ayato, Kokomi, maybe not always as optimal, but if you just don't like his short, for example, even with his new skin, if you're still not a fan of him, of his design, and you don't want to build him, there are other options. But if you're looking just for value in your account, it's pretty likely that he's going to be the best pick, because yeah, even though Yelan's slightly better, Farina works with other teams too. You might not always want to use Yelan with Farina. You may want the defensive utility that Xingqiu provides. It may be very valuable, the damage reduction, the interruption resistance, and you might want to use Yelan and Xingqiu together. You might want to use Farina and Xingqiu together. There are still great reasons to get Xingqiu. Getting him means you don't have to get some of these other Hydro 5-stars, which means you can spend your 5-star wishes on other characters, making your account stronger a different way. So Xingqiu still probably the most valuable pull, especially if you don't have him. I will say he is available from from the Star Glitter shop, but he's pretty infrequent on banners these days. So if you're an old player, obviously you already have C6, and it is what it is. I'm more talking to the new players who don't have tons of constellations of these characters. Xingqiu is a character that not only is he a very strong character, he has very strong constellation. His constellation 1 increasing his rain star is pretty much not a factor. His constellation 2 decreasing the hydro resistance of opponents hit by his sword, very good, very useful constellation. C3 increasing his burst level, very good constellation. C4 increasing his skill. This is an underrated constellation along with his C5, because if you play especially his national teams in the right way, getting a vaporize on Xingqiu's skill, if you have C4 and C5, you can hit some crazy numbers like over 100k, over 150k on a team that's not focused on his personal damage. And it's a big reason why, you know, Rite National is so good, because you're able to run Xingqiu with a damage weapon, so you can go tons of damage, and getting those nukes is really big. Should not be underestimated. And then his C6 increasing his hydro application, increasing his energy regeneration rate. Xingqiu's constellations are some of the best in the game. So if you are using Xingqiu and you are maxing him out, he's a very good character to pick up just at C0, and a very good character to pick up constellations for. He's not needed, there's other options, but he can also free up your pulls to not go for 5-star hydro characters and go for other characters that you'd prefer. So Xingqiu, amazing choice. Xiangling, also an amazing choice. You get her C0 for free though, and it's only her C4 that really pops off. So at C0, she's very good. She does a lot of damage. I will say a couple things. She's not for everybody, because obviously some people don't like her design. Some people have other pyro characters that they like better, like Hu Tao, Yoimiya, Klee, Linny. But of course, if you have Linny, then you kind of want to build her because they work so well together. And same with Klee. But again, there's so many great damaging options in Genshin that you don't have to go for her. But if you do, and you're trying to work towards her C4, that's the main thing you want to consider. Her C1, reducing the power res of opponents hit by Guoba, kind of cool, but not like a huge damage increase the way her C4 is anyways. C2 really is a nothing burger for her, doesn't matter at all. C3 increasing her burst level, really big. Burst levels are a big deal for a character that does all their damage with their burst and has such high scalings. And then C4, a 40% increase for her Pyronado is an absolute bonkers increase. Like, this just straight up is a 40% damage increase just for her personal damage, but on top of that, that duration allows the on-field characters and the other characters to react with this damage even more. So it can potentially be even a bigger damage increase than this. But overall, regardless of exactly what number it ends up being, it's huge. One of the best constellations of the game. C5, not that impactful comparatively. And C6, giving all party members a 15% power damage bonus. It's definitely nice. But C4 is really where you want to aim for. After C4, the others are just gravy. I personally like, while Xingqiu, his best constellation, or one of his best constellations, is his C6, probably his best overall, although the other ones are good. Xiangling's best constellation is her C4. So while no matter what, as long as you don't have C6 Xingqiu, picking him up is going to get you a noticeable increase. Whereas after C4 for Xiangling, unless you really don't want any of the other characters, I wouldn't pick her as your character beyond C4. Like, you really don't want Gaming or something like that. So let's do Gaming next. I know a lot of people are most interested in Gaming, and let me tell you, his animations look incredible. And not only that, his numbers look really good. I don't know how he did it, but the Genshin scientist seems to have already made a lot of Gaming videos somehow. I guess he just must be predicting how good he's going to be and whatever. But it seems to me that when you get to higher constellations of Gaming, he will actually be a DPS that's comparable to other 5-star DPSs, which is just incredible for a 4-star DPS. We just don't have that in Genshin Impact right now. The only way that 4-star DPSs are even comparable is if they're more driver type characters, like Sucrose, for example, not really a DPS, because they just don't give really amazing numbers. I think it'll be important to have characters like Farina and Bennett with Gaming, but overall, he's just looking to be an incredible character. And so he's going to be the first to go in this tier, which will be performs amazing if you like them. So he's going to go here. And now this is the caveat. He's good at C0 and great at C6, which I think is just an amazing place for 4 stars to be. I don't think characters need to be great at C0. They just need to function very well. Like, just be good. Just be quite good at C0. And then as you work towards your C6 and you finally unlock it, then they're amazing. I think that's awesome. I think that's really good game design, because it kind of feels good to earn your C6 4 stars, even if if it takes you a long time, even if it takes you a year, that's okay. What else, you know, it's fun to work towards that. And I think something like Xingqiu, something like Gaming, the state that they're in, good at C0, great at C6, I think that's perfect. Now, obviously, we'll have to wait until he actually comes out. Make sure you do subscribe for my day 1 Gaming guide. Maybe day 2, I guess, if I do Shangyun earlier. But still, really, really good character. Other characters that are gonna, and we won't go over constellations fully right now, but just know that I think it's his C4 and his C6 do the most, but you can't, unless you get really, really lucky on the main banner, you probably won't be getting a C4 C6. But I would just say that if you don't have C6 by the time you're done all your wishes, going for his constellations, if you're trying to get him, is what I would do, because the closer you can get to a C6, the better. Other characters that belong in this tier perform amazing if you like them. I mean, Beidou is definitely one. I think Beidou doesn't perform as well as Gaming. I don't think that they're quite in the same league. I mean, they're in the same league. They're pretty close, but I think Beidou just isn't quite on the same level. Still a great character. My favorite teams with her are the Aggravate team, where you use Sucrose as the driver, you're using Yao Yao as the defensive option, and then you're using Fischl as a battery. That's my favorite Beidou team, but she also works in Alhaitham spread teams and some Hyperbloom teams where she's on field. You can check out my Beidou guide. My Beidou guide's really, really good. You can find it in the guides playlist, but Beidou is a really, really great choice if you like them. I'm kind of torn where I want to put Yanfei. For me, she's like right in the middle, because it's like Yanfei, she feels almost as strong as Yoimiya, but she has a bit more comfort with her shield. She has a bit more options with her shield. I think Yanfei is a really solid carry, but I feel bad putting her in the same tier as Gaming and Beidou. It's like maybe Yanfei belongs here and Beidou performs right in the middle, because Beidou is one of those characters where she's kind of horrible in single target, but she's really good in AoE. I'm not really sure what to do here. Good or great. I just feel like Gaming's on another level once you get him to his C6, but the jury's still out because he's not released yet. So it's really tough. Hopefully you guys actually watch the video and you're not just skipping to the end, because there's nuance to this, right? I'm gonna put Yunjin in this tier as well. Oh, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's do the constellation. So Beidou C1 creates a shield that absorbs 16% of Beidou's max HP. Pretty good. I mean, her damage reduction she already has as a baseline, so it's solid to like more resistance interruption for a single hit, but the shield's pretty much going down after one hit, but it's still solid. Like, we still take the defensive utility. C2 is the really big one. This is her C6. This is where once you hit C2, you don't need to keep going for Beidou constellations to make her perform really well, but she definitely still gets a lot out of especially C5 being her burst level. Her skill, unless you're playing main DPS Beidou, which is valid but not optimal, so it's not like the craziest constellation. C4 kind of useless for most people unless you're playing her as a main DPS, and then C6 decreasing Electro res by 15%. It is really good, but you're already usually running her with an animal unit. This will definitely get you more value in something like an Alhaitham spread team than it will for like Taser team with Sucrose, or even a Aggravate team. C2 really is the big one, and after C2 you can kind of do what you want. If you want to max out Beidou, you still get good value from it, but you don't need to. C2 is that perfect stopping point. For Yanfei, her C1 really, really big for stamina reduction, very good quality of life constellation. Otherwise she has pretty severe stamina issues, so you definitely want to get that C1. C2 increases crit rate. It's a pretty solid crit rate buff, but only against enemies below 50%. It's kind of tough. It's like, do you build way less crit rate to take advantage of this passive, or do you just ignore it? I think it's a solid constellation overall though, because even if you've got like 80% crit rate, which most people will not have at all, and you have like an 80, 180, you're just got a cracked Yanfei, you know, getting that crit rate from 80 to 100 is actually a DPS gain. Like, so as long as you don't have more than 80 crit rate, this is still a DPS gain. So I would say this is actually pretty good. I just wouldn't build around it. Like, I wouldn't do like only 50 crit rate on your Yanfei because of this constellation. But overall, I think that's a good constellation. This is burst talent increase, or is that skill? That's her skill, sorry. The C4 creates a shield for her. This is good for her own interruption resistance, and it's also good if you want to use her as a shield for Hu Tao or someone else. I personally don't love using her as a shield bot because she has set energy issues, but you can make it work. But it's just you'd prefer to have a shielder that gives some kind of buffing, like even Thoma's C6 at least gives some buffing where she can hold thrill Thrilling Tales, but then if she's holding Thrilling Tales, you're really going to struggle to have enough energy. So you might be able to make it work. I haven't really tried to make her work with Thrilling Tales. If you can do it, then that could be really good. And then this increases her burst level, and then this increases the maximum number of Scarlet Seals, which is a big part of her damage. So overall, if you're doing DPS Yanfei, they're all valuable because your DPS is heavily invested in. Your DPS is who's doing the majority of the damage on your team. So if you're using Yanfei DPS, I highly recommend going all the way to C6 and getting those constellations. I don't see her on banners all that much, so really, really good to get those extra constellations if you're trying to do DPS Yanfei. And if you're not, if you're just using shield bot Yanfei, then C4 is obviously your stopping point, and you need to have C4, otherwise you can't do it. So I think Yanfei is pretty clear. She really wants her constellations if you're gonna be using her. She doesn't perform at the level of 5-star power carries, but she still performs plenty well enough to be good. But keep in mind that she won't just work. You need to invest into her. You need to treat her like a 5-star, and you might want to consider getting her a 5-star weapon. You might want to consider getting her like really cracked artifact and really good teams, and build your sub DPS well, and build her really, really well, because she is a main carry DPS. If you're using her that way, you can't just expect her to work off the bat, and especially she has 4-star scaling. So although she performs quite well, she's not insane out the box, and she doesn't have like a C6 that's crazy like Gaming that takes them really to the next level. Yunjin is an interesting one because she's a character that people really love because she's a buffer and she seems to have so much flexibility. So people really sing the praises of Yunjin very highly. I think Yunjin is good, if not very good. I feel like people overrate her a little bit from time to time. Like I'm gonna put her in the niche tier, but maybe I'll take away the niche tier and I'll just put her here. She performs good or great if you like them or need them. Like if you've got Yoimiya and you built Yunjin, like Yunjin requires heavy investment to properly make work, but once you do, it feels really good. And she also feels good if you've got a really hyper invested Ayato, if you've got a really hyper invested Wanderer. The thing is, Wanderer and Ayato have better things that they can do than use Yunjin, and now with Farina, so does Yoimiya, unless you're doing double Geo with Zhongli. So I feel like Yunjin is a character that you build because you want to build her. Like she's a support that you don't really choose her for the ceiling damage. But the other thing I'll say she's nice for is for when we get the Wolf Lord in the Abyss, which to be fair hasn't been all that frequent, but having the Wolf Lord on my team when I'm using Yoimiya or when I'm using whoever, Yunjin just shreds the Wolf Lord's little doggies. So very, very valuable character for certain Abyss runs. But you can always use Thrilling Tales Ningguang as well. So but unlike some of the other characters on this list, at least Yunjin has places where she is very, very strong. Even if she's not best in slot in all of those teams, she does get very, very strong, especially with higher constellations. So unlike someone like Jinyan or Ningguang, she has options where she's really, really strong. Looking at her constellations, decreasing the cooldown for her skill, quite good. Lets her use 2 skills per rotation in a lot of teams, which reduces her energy needs, which is very important because she's got massive energy needs. That's the thing for Yunjin, is that she just has high investment requirement, which is fine, but it's something to know. It's not like Bennett where you can he's so valuable just with a high base attack weapon. She needs artifacts. She needs levels. She needs talent. She's an expensive character to build. C2 increases normal attack damage further, very important for her damage buffing. Burst levels, her buffs come from her burst, so very important. When she triggers or crystallize, her defense is increased by 20%. It's all right. You don't get a crazy amount of damage from this for your team, but it is something. It increases her defense, which increases her buffing. She's not going to always trigger crystallize, but you're going to often do it. So when you do, it's at least useful. It buffs your team. Upping your skill level, this one's pretty much useless. And then C6 increases attack speed by 12%. This is good in Yoimiya, Ayato, Wanderer teams. This is a big part of what takes them to a next level and makes her, better than Bennett for Yoimiya, for example, or makes her a really fun choice for Ayato. Plus, if you just love attack speed, C6 Yunjin plus C2 Jean, plus like Mika or something is kind of super funny in terms of machine gun Wanderer, machine gun Yoimiya, machine gun Ayato. It's very, very cool. But yeah, Yunjin, solid choice if you want to go for her, but definitely not a must pull. Even if you main Yoimiya, even if you main Ayato, she's not a must pull. She is still a character that you build because you like her, but I like her, so I'm very happy I build her and I have a lot of fun with her. I think she's also really fun support, especially with that increased attack speed. It is something you can notice, so I'm a big fan. Xinyan and Ningguang both belong here. If you're really, I'm not going to go over all of their constellations. Yunjin's Ningguang C6 is really important if you're using main DPS Ningguang, maybe I will. Just for you. Just for the 5 people who are considering Xinyan. Upon scoring a critical hit, normal and charge attacks increase by 15%. This is pretty good. You're always going to hit critical hit. That damage boost is good. She's a character that really wants C6 Bennett to be played in mono pyro. And if you're maining Xinyan, that's the best. You can use her as a defensive utility and stuff like that, but it's not really as good compared to Yanfei or Toma, who already are barely best in slot for defensive utility. Physical damage has crit rate increased by 100%. This is pretty fun for some nuke stuff, but it's not really practical because a physical damage dealer that's pyro just makes no sense. It's like Fremine with extra step because you're not able to do anything. Skill level doesn't really matter. Swing damage increases opponent's physical res. So this is what you want to have if you're going to use her as like a nuke support for Eula or something for screenshot damage, but it's not really a practical team anyways. Increases her burst level. Good for burst damage for her mono pyro team, which is her best team realistically. And then C6 decreases stamina consumption of her charge attack. You're going to be using her charge attack for her main DPS role. It's going to be infused with Bennett's pyro, so this is probably a good idea to get. And attack bonus increased to 50% of defense. So this is actually her C6. Sorry, I forgot. It's the one that's pretty much mandatory to use her as a good main DPS. So if you're going to be maining Xinyan as a DPS, you definitely want to keep picking her until you get C6. So, you know, have at her. Enjoy. Definitely don't recommend her for the majority of people. Ningguang, one of the best character designs, especially with this skin. How is she not a 5-star? How did they not make her better? I'm pissed. Okay, C1, when a normal attack hits, it deals AoE damage. This is fine. The AoE still isn't that big, but it's okay. When Jade Screen is shattered, its cooldown will reset. This is really good because your Jade Screen often does get shattered, and you can also use it as tech to get your first one shattered on purpose and then be able to make a new one. So you just do extra damage while still having the walkthrough effect. So C2 is good. C3 increasing her burst level, important if you're going to use her as a burst DPS. C4 increases characters elemental res by 10%. Pretty useless. C5 increasing skill level for Jade Screen. It's okay. It's extra damage, but it's not that great. And then C6 gains 7-star Jade. When her Star Shadow is used, she gains 7-star Jades. This is very important for her main DPS. You pretty much have to use her as just a burst DPS before C6, and that's generally what I like to use her best as. She's my favorite on Navia teams as a burst DPS or as a Thrilling Tales holder for Hu Tao teams when I need that G application from when I didn't have Zhongli. Overall, she did get a buff with the new artifact set. It definitely increases her ceiling damage, but she's still not insane, but she's fine if you really build into her. I definitely don't recommend building her for most people. It's definitely not the first character I'd recommend for people. I'd recommend her after you can already 36-star the Abyss and you want to build your Ningguang. Now that's when I would start doing it. But if you are a dedicated main, then you will get value out of those constellations. Chongyun, he could go in, it could be like this, it could be like this. I'm not sure. I'm gonna put it here just because I just feel like he is strong and he has good front load and he is underrated. I call him a disrespected character, and maybe I'm doing him a disrespect by putting him here as well. I do think he's solid. It's just that he's overall worse than Rosaria in my opinion, but I'm not trying to slander him. Like I want to put him here. Good or great if you like them or need them. Yeah, I think he performs good, but I kind of put him lower on my power rank tier list. If you super invest into him, because here's the thing, he has a ton of front load with his burst. So if you super invest into him, he actually can perform good or great. It's kind of like, I think he feels a lot like Yanfei. If you really invest, they've got some stuff going on. I just feel like with Yanfei, like you kind of have Farina double hydro now, and getting a double swirl may actually be more practical. I just think Yanfei has the better teams, even though Chongyun is about as good of a character. This is what it is he's cryo as well. If cryo gets some more buff, Chongyun will go up here. But even still, don't worry, like if you're a fan of Chongyun, like I built him up and he has some pretty awesome clears and he's pretty fun. There's some crazy clears out there with Chongyun. Don't shy away from building him if you like him. The last attack of Chongyun's normal attack combo releases 3 ice blades. It's good for main DPS, but not insane. Elemental skill and elemental burst cast within the frost field have their cooldown time decreased by 15%. This one is really good if you know what you're doing. Extra skills, shorter rotations, extra bursts. It's a very unique constellation. It is very good. Increasing your burst level, huge, massive constellation. Chongyun regenerates 1 energy every time he hits an opponent affected by cryo. Good constellation. He wants that energy. You want to burst as often as possible. Skill cooldown. His skill does damage, so it's all right, but it's not a huge part of his damage. And then C6 really is the big one. Before C6, he doesn't really really pop off. But I think C6 is definitely, you definitely want to make sure you do get C6 if you're going to be maining Chongyun. And finally, Yao Yao, who is definitely one of the better characters here, performs amazing if you like them or need them. Absolutely. I think Aggravate is where she shines the best, but she's also super insane in Nilou teams. She's solid in Hyperbloom teams, Alhaitham teams. You can use her in Hopper Bloom, which is one of the funniest teams in the whole wide world to play with Farina. Check out that video. It's a 4-star only team, by the way. I have a video on Farina for 4-star teams only. She's a character that does not need constellation. Wow. It seems like all of these characters benefit so much from their constellations, but Yao Yao is a character that doesn't need them at all. C1, because her main focus is healing and Dendro application, which she has in full force at C0. So C1, characters within AoE gain 15% Dendro damage bonus. Actually pretty solid, especially for Alhaitham spread teams. This is definitely one that you can pick up and is solid. For other teams, not necessary. Aggravate teams don't care about Dendro damage bonus. They care about Electro damage bonus. And Nilou doesn't care about Dendro damage bonus because it doesn't deflect Bloom damage. But if you're using her with Alhaitham, then that's a really good constellation. C2, Yaya regenerates energy. She already doesn't really need too much energy, so this is not so necessary. Extra skill levels, more healing. It's fine, but definitely not something you need to go for. Yao's elemental mastery increases. This is good for as a driver in Nilou teams. This is great for that. I actually recently got this. I should try her in Nilou teams once again because I haven't used her for a while since I got this. So this means you can build more HP and still get elemental mastery, more elemental mastery. Really good. That's actually super cool. So if you're a Nilou enthusiast and you're using her on a Nilou team, this could be a constellation you go for. But again, she works totally great at C0. It's not something you need. The burst levels, more healing. And then C6, for every 2 white jade radishes she throws out the window, the next throw will also release a mega radish that will have a larger AoE, deals AoE Dendro damage, restores HP for character. So it's more healing and a bit more damage. Not something you need to go for by any means. So C1, so her arguably one of her best teams, Aggravate, you don't need any constellations at all. And then for Alhaitham spread, C1, and for Nilou, C4. But even Alhaitham and Nilou, they don't need those constellations. They aren't super massive buff. So yeah, great choice. This is my general list for picking up these characters. I think this is fair. I kind of want to put Yanfei here. I'm not sure. I haven't tested Yanfei enough. I've tested her some. I could do this just for like symmetry, or this just so Chongyun mains don't get mad at me. But you guys get it. It's something like this. It always depends. Your best character to pick out of Lantern Rite is definitely your favorite character if you don't have them. And then the second best character to pick is characters that enhance your favorite characters and just characters that enhance the fun. So that's important. But if you're looking in terms of value, then this is kind of where I would, in terms of like, especially if you consider value, this is what I would say. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know who you're going for. Let me know what you think of Xingqiu's skin. Take care. Bye for now.